The Houston Astros are your 2022 World Series champions, beating the Phillies in 6 games and the first team to clinch a World Series at home since the 2013 Red Sox. A great year for the Astros, obviously. Led the American League in wins, second in the big leagues in wins, only to the Dodgers. And they went all the way, beating the Mariners, the Yankees, and then obviously the Philadelphia Phillies to cap off their second World Series in the past 6 years. I mean, it's been a great ride for this Astros team. Obviously, they get their second World Series, and Jeremy Pena, the World Series MVP. We're gonna take a look at this Astros team, the World Series, and how they did it, how they won this World Series, 2022 World Series. So let's get straight into it. My name is Derrik. You're watching Bleacher Brawls, and let's get straight into it. Obviously, the road to the World Series is definitely a tough one to go on, right? Like, and I say this all the time, to win the World Series, first you got to worry about making the playoffs. You can't If you don't make the playoffs, you can't win the World Series, right? Well, the Houston Nationals had no problem making the playoffs. 106 wins, most wins in the American League, easily winning the AL West. I mean, there's not much competition in the AL West in the first place, besides the Mariners now. The Mariners still were, 15 games behind Houston or something like that? Houston just, was a runaway train in the AL West, especially considering the Mariners got a slow start to the year. And it goes back to a quote that you'll sometimes hear in Formula One from Michael Schumacher, and it's to finish first you have to finish. To win the World Series, first you have to make it there, right? You can't win the World Series if you don't make it there. You can't win the World Series if you don't make it to the playoffs. The Astros did that. They made it to the playoffs, and that's a big thing that I say. I'm like, hey, you can't win the World Series if you don't make it to the playoffs. The Astros did their job getting there, and they get to the playoffs. Close games against Seattle. Do not get me wrong; those are close games. Jordan Alvarez, huge game one walk-off bomb to make it 8-7. Houston, that was massive for Houston. They lose that game one, and you could get yourself into a little bit of trouble. Game two, another very tight game. Houston wins. Game three, though, an 18-inning game. Jeremy Pena, obviously the replacement for Carlos Correa, comes up clutch in the 18th inning with a solo shot to put Houston up 1-0, and that is all they needed to win that game 1-0 and 18 in Seattle to move on to the ALCS. Then they get the Yankees, obviously, and 4 games. None of the same thing. None of those games are blowouts. They're all close games. But Houston did their thing, beating the Yankees in 4 games, moving on to the World Series, where they got the Philadelphia Phillies. And obviously the Phillies were. It's almost like the Phillies were kind of like the team of destiny if you could pick one of the two. Obviously, the 6th seed coming into the playoffs in the National League. They had the same playoff format as there was last year. The Phillies wouldn't be in it. And the Phillies get in as that last team in the National League. They go and they beat the Cardinals. They beat the Cardinals, who were kind of everyone's. If your team wasn't in it, there's a decent chance you're going to be rooting for the Cardinals because it's Pujols last year and Molina's last year, and we didn't know if it was going to be Wainwright's last year or not. But it was still the last year for all three of them together. So it but they beat the Cardinals with a big comeback in game one late. Almost like the Cardinals kind of threw the game away almost. They didn't really throw it away, but the Phillies, where they were on the brink of losing that game one, and a couple things happen, and they go up. What was it, 6-2? From being down, I think they were down 2-1 at the time, or maybe it was 2-3. I don't remember exactly. And then they close out the wild card round, winning both games. They go into the division series, playing the Braves. They win that 1-4 as well. And the Phillies' offense was just looking like an offense that could explode at any moment. Then the National Championship Series, you get the Padres, who are on a roll as well. They beat the Mets in the wild card round. Then they beat the Dodgers. But the Phillies are just too much for them. The Phillies pitching came up big. The Padres had a big outburst in game 2 offensively, but couldn't muster up enough offense the rest of the series, and the Phillies pitching was solid. Then you get to the World Series, and it's Houston and Philly. Um, and I think this is where Houston really has the advantage against any team, right? As we kind of get down to breaking down this World Series matchup, is Houston I think has the pitching advantage against everyone. And the only team I'd say maybe is like the Dodgers. Like Houston has the pitching matchup against like literally everyone. They have that top end talent in the rotation. They have rotation depth. They have the top end talent in the bullpen. They have bullpen depth. Like they have like if the game was going to go 20, 25 innings, like Houston would be fine. They'd be able to cover it, right? I don't know if Philadelphia could cover 25 innings. I know Houston could. Talk about like Verlander going 6 innings. Then your bullpen. You have like a couple guys go through like the 10th inning. Then they bring in like a Luis Garcia for 6 innings. Then it's like okay, bring in Urquidy, and then it's like okay, bring in Christian Javier, and it's like, and then they still have like Connor Brown, and like Houston has guys, right, that can go long and still pitch very well. So like the depth there is outrageous for Houston. Obviously, I know Urquidy was on the postseason roster. I don't even know if he pitched at all this postseason. like he was on the roster. I don't think he pitched at all. Um, I really don't think he pitched at all. At least I can't remember him pitching at all. But and the Philly obviously, Bryce Harper was on absolute fire heading into the World Series, whereas Jordan Alvarez had massively cooled down since the ALDS. Um, so it's one of these things with series where it's like okay, it's probably whoever's going to get the pitching because Philly they have Aaron Nola, Zach Wheeler, Ranger Suarez, and the Astros are going to roll out Verlander, who has struggles in the World Series. To be fair to that, he has struggles in the World Series. Then you got Framber Valdez, Mr. Consistency there. You have Lance McCullers, Christian Javier, who has been stellar down the stretch for the Astros, down the stretch of the regular season and so far in the postseason at that point. So there was so many options, and what ended up happening is obviously Phillies take game 1, and it's like okay, Phillies are here to play, right? I think that was the big thing. Okay, Phillies are here to play. And I feel like Houston loses game 1 a lot in the World Series. I don't know, maybe that's just me, but it feels like they lose game 1 a lot. Houston comes back, wins in game 2. That's massive. Game 3 gets rained out, and then Lance McCullers gets lit up for 5 homers. However, I know that you can say the rumor pitch tipping. He was definitely pitch tipping. Even if it's something super slight, like, and I don't, if you check out another pitching ninja posted it a few days ago or whatever. It was like a week ago now, but you can clearly see like the fact that he's tipping his pitches. Like it's clear that he's tipping, right? It's not like it's not like he's just there and coming set and like his like barely moving, like nothing's different. Like there was definitely something different, very slight, but that's all hitters need sometimes. The slightest thing they can pick up if they can see it, right? And it's probably why Bryce Harper's talking to Alec Boehm. I know a couple of people on social media are saying like lefties don't normally talk to righties, so there's clearly something there. Um, and it would make sense, obviously. They hit 5 homers off McCullers, but McCullers did help Houston save his bullpen by going a little deeper into that game. They didn't just pull him straight away, and that definitely helped keep the Astros bullpen ready to go for games 4, 5, and 6. And into game 4, the Astros come in, Christian Javier on the mound, and talk about dominant. Christian Javier, the fact that he's the 4th starter in this rotation just showcases how much talent the Houston Astros have. Because Christian Javier earlier in the year was part of a combined no hitter against the Yankees, Guess what he does against the Phillies in the World Series? Combined no-hitter. Christian Javier, with the 6 innings, the big effort in that game was from Christian Javier, the 6 innings, and not giving up a hit. It's just impressive, you know? Like, it's just impressive to throw. Even though it's a combined no-hitter, and you can say, oh, well, it's not the same as a no-hitter. Like, the fact that you threw a combined no-hitter in the World Series at the biggest stage in what's supposed to be the two best teams playing each other is outrageous, right? It only happened one other time in the World Series, right? And I know, and that wasn't a combined no-hitter. That was a straight up no-hitter. But and I know Roy Halladay had one in the division series, but that's all that we've seen in the postseason. And yes, combined no-hitter's not the same as a no-hitter, but it's still pretty damn impressive that you get a combined no-hitter, obviously. And the Astros, did their thing offense. They put up 5 in that game, but all they needed was to put up 1. Christian Javier, 6 innings, and then the Astros bullpen went Abreu, Montero, and Presley. But realistically, like, it just looked like the Phillies didn't have a number on any of those guys coming into the game, right? Maybe that's just me. I don't know. The Phillies just looked off all night, right? Um, and Aaron Nola wasn't great. I mean, 4 innings, 3 earned runs. He wasn't great for them. And then obviously Jose Alvarado got hit as well, and he gave up 2 earned in that 5th inning where the Astros scored all 5 of their runs. So, it's and I don't know, maybe a little bit of a precursor, I guess, to Alvarado getting lit up later in the series, which we'll get to. But it's definitely interesting, right? But moving on in Game 5, obviously, Houston wins 3-2. I think that one was huge. Obviously, Jeremy Pena had the RBI single in the first. Then Schwarber answers right away with the leadoff homer. Then Jeremy Pena hits a homer of his own later on in the game. I think that was like the 4th inning. Then obviously Jordan Alvarez got an insurance run on a ground out. And then obviously that insurance run was massive because Gene Segura had an RBI single to make it 3-2, but the Phillies couldn't muster it up enough offense in that game. 3-2. Ryan Presley, just you get the Astros lead. Presley coming in the back end, and he shut it down. And it's even crazy too because in game 5, Montero comes in, only gets 1 out, gives up a run. They bring in Presley. He's got to go 5 outs for a save, and he just shuts it down. So Ryan Presley was great in this World Series, great for the Astros, and I'll get into a couple of guys later that I do want to kind of point out. And then Game 6, obviously the big backbreaker. Obviously Houston goes up 1-0 in the top of the 6th with Kyle Schwarber home run, and then the backbreaker. A couple guys get on for the Astros, and then Jordan Alvarez comes up and whack. See you later. Absolute missile to dead center. 450, 3-run homer. Yeah, just Jordan Alvarez he had his struggles this postseason after the division series, but when the moment was there, Jordan Alvarez puts the Astros on top 3-1, and then Christian Vasquez adds an insurance run, making it 4-1 Houston. And that was the scoring for the rest of the game. Astros bullpen shut it down. So with the Houston Astros winning the World Series, there are a couple of people I do want to shout out from the Astros. As a Red Sox fan, I'm going to start with Christian Vasquez. Becoming a 2-time World Series champion. Great for him. Still sucks that he got traded. Don't get me wrong. It still sucks. But congrats on him winning his second World Series in his career. Um, Moving on, I got a couple former Red Sox prospects here. Ryan Presley, former Red Sox prospect. Presley's from Texas, clinches the World Series in Texas for a Texas-based team. Good for him. And then the last Red Sox related one is Mauricio Dubon, former Red Sox prospect. He's the only Honduran MLB player ever and becomes the first MLB player from Honduras to win a World Series. So congrats to Mauricio Dubon. And then now, obviously, moving on to the non-Red Sox related ones, Jeremy Pena, first MLB player from the University of Maine to win a World Series, and I'm guessing a World Series MVP too. Great for him. Yeah, none of the other ones won a World Series. I'm pretty sure Jeremy Pena is the only one to get a World Series MVP. I'm just gonna take that guess. Then obviously, Dusty Baker, cannot forget about Dusty Baker. Obviously, he had the most wins for an MLB manager that hadn't won a World Series. Well, he's off that list now. He's got his World Series at 73. Congrats to Dusty Baker. A well-deserved World Series for Dusty Baker. And last but not least, Trey Mancini. Everyone knows, but I'll say it again. Trey Mancini deserves this World Series. Guy who, had to take a year out of baseball, battling cancer, beats cancer, comes back to the Orioles. He's a team leader. Then he gets shipped off to Houston at the trade deadline. Some Orioles fans weren't necessarily happy about it, but Trey Mancini goes out, gets his ring, and great for Trey Mancini. Deserves it 100%. And might see him back in the Orioles uniform someday as well. That would be cool. But yeah, I feel like that's great. Obviously, also congrats to every other Houston Astros that I didn't mention. Obviously, winning the World Series is a big accomplishment. And you look at the 2017 World Series, and people can say, "Oh, cheating, whatever." Can't say that about this World Series. This World Series ring's gonna feel even better for everyone involved who was on that 2017 team. And congrats to them for winning that World Series. Yeah, it's great year for Houston. Only 2 losses in the playoffs, both of them to the Phillies. The Phillies came and they came there to fight and try and win a World Series. They put up a fight to Houston, but Houston did go on, win a World Series, got through Philadelphia. To win it in 6, and like I said, and I'm pretty sure I said it earlier, first team since the 2013 Red Sox to clinch a World Series at home. That is special, and I think that's a good place to wrap it up. We do have a off-season look at, or more of a just a free agency look ahead. Also, too, we should have a Yankees video covering the main topics of the Yankees offseason. Aaron Judge, Brian Cashman, Aaron Boone, do they stay? A couple other guys too, kind of discuss the main overview of the Yankees offseason before getting into the deeper details in the coming weeks. And we should have a Red Sox one at some point coming out too. So stay tuned for all that. I think that's a great place to wrap it up. My name is Derek, so thanks for tuning in to Bleacher Brawls. Check out all the links in the description, Bleacher Brawls podcast website, Instagram, and Twitter, plus all the crew's Twitters. Like the video if you liked it. If you like this video, hit the subscribe and hit the notification bell so you get notified whenever we post. Comment, let us know your thoughts on the World Series, on this Houston Astros team. How you feeling about it? You want the Astros to win? You want the Astros to lose? Any players that you would personally like to shout out that I didn't mention, go ahead and do that. I know Alvaro's happy for Jose Altuve, as Alvaro is from Venezuela. So, shout out to Jose Altuve. On the behalf of Alvaro. And yeah, I think that is a good place to wrap it up. No, definitely. So, anyone wants to give a shout out to anyone, leave it in the comments. That's it. My name is Derek. Thanks for tuning in to Bleacher Brawls, and I'll see you next time.